Imagine refusing to pay a fine of 200 million euros to your neighbors because you believe they're interfering in your business. Well, that's exactly what Hungary just did to the European Union. In today's video, we break down the geopolitical earthquake caused by Hungary's defiance of EU migration rules, what it means for the future of the EU, and how this could have ripple effects far beyond Europe. Well, folks, it seems like our old friend Viktor Orbán, the Prime Minister of Hungary, is at it again. This time, he's not just making headlines, he's making waves across the entire European continent. This time, he's gone full-blown maverick on us, refusing to pay fines levied by the EU over, you guessed it, migration. But this isn't just about money, it's about principles, sovereignty, and the future direction of Europe. This isn't just some bureaucratic squabble, it's a full-on rebellion, a middle finger to Brussels, and a sign of the shifting sands in European politics. Orbán's defiance is a bold statement that Hungary will not be pushed around, and it's resonating with many who feel the EU has overstepped its bounds. Hungary, you see, has been at loggerheads with the EU for years over its migration policies. The tension has been simmering for a long time, and now it's boiling over. The EU, in its infinite wisdom, has tried to distribute migrants across the bloc, a move that has gone down about as well as a lead balloon in some quarters, particularly in Hungary. The idea was to share the burden, but not everyone sees it that way. Orbán, never one to shy away from a fight, has dug in his heels, building fences, tightening borders, and generally making it clear that Hungary will chart its own course. His stance has made him a hero to some and a villain to others, but one thing is clear, he's not backing down. This latest dust-up is over a 2015 EU scheme to relocate migrants who arrived in Greece and Italy. The plan was to ease the pressure on these frontline states, but it has faced stiff resistance. Hungary, along with Poland, refused to play ball, arguing that the scheme infringed on their sovereignty. They see it as an imposition, a dictate from Brussels that ignores their right to control their own borders. The EU, not to be outdone, took them to court and won. The European Court of Justice ruled that Hungary and Poland had to comply, but compliance is not in Orbán's vocabulary. Now Hungary is staring down the barrel of hefty fines, and they're basically saying, come and get 'em, it's a standoff, and neither side is blinking. This is a big deal, folks. It's a direct challenge to the EU's authority, and a sign of the growing rift between Brussels and some of its member states. The implications are huge, not just for Hungary, but for the entire European project. So, buckle up, because things are about to get interesting. The stakes are high, and the outcome is far from certain. Will the EU enforce its rules, or will Hungary's defiance inspire others to follow suit? Only time will tell, but one thing is for sure. The battle lines have been drawn, and the fight for the future of Europe is on. Now, let's talk about Viktor Orbán for a second. The man's a piece of work, a self-proclaimed illiberal Democrat who's been accused of everything from undermining democracy to cozying up to Putin. His tenure has been marked by a series of controversial policies and actions that have drawn both praise and condemnation from various quarters. Some say he's a dangerous demagogue, others a defender of Hungarian values. His supporters argue that he's standing up for the nation's sovereignty and protecting its cultural identity, while his critics see him as a threat to democratic norms and a promoter of authoritarianism. Whatever your take, there's no denying he's a shrewd political operator. Orbán has managed to maintain a tight grip on power through a combination of populist rhetoric, strategic alliances, and a keen understanding of the political landscape. Orbán's argument is that Hungary has the right to decide who enters its borders, thank you very much. He has framed the issue of migration as a matter of national security and cultural preservation, resonating with many Hungarians who feel threatened by the influx of migrants. He's tapped into a vein of anxiety about migration and national identity, painting himself as the protector of Hungarian culture against the encroaching hordes. This narrative has been particularly effective in rallying support among those who fear that their way of life is under siege. It's a familiar playbook, used by populists the world over, and it's been remarkably effective. By positioning himself as the defender of the nation against external threats, Orbán has been able to galvanize a significant portion of the electorate. But is it really about sovereignty, or is it about something else? Critics argue that Orbán's focus on migration is a convenient distraction from other pressing issues facing Hungary, such as economic challenges, corruption, and the erosion of democratic institutions. Some argue that Orbán's stance on migration is a smokescreen, a way to deflect attention from his government's own failings and consolidate power. By creating a sense of crisis, he can justify measures that would otherwise be seen as overreaching or undemocratic. By picking a fight with the EU, he presents himself as a strongman, standing up to the bureaucrats in Brussels, a narrative that plays well with his base. This defiance not only bolsters his image domestically, but also positions him as a key figure in the broader European populist movement. Whatever his motivations, Orbán's gamble has paid off, at least politically. His ability to frame himself as the defender of Hungarian sovereignty has resonated with voters, allowing him to maintain a strong political position. He's won 4 consecutive elections, and his Fidesz party enjoys a comfortable majority in parliament. This political dominance has enabled him to push through a range of policies that have reshaped Hungary's political and social landscape. But his defiance comes at a price, both for Hungary and for the EU. Hungary's relationship with the EU has become increasingly strained, with concerns about the country's commitment to democratic values and the rule of law. This tension has implications not only for Hungary's future, but also for the broader European project. Now, let's turn our attention to the EU and its, shall we say, nuanced approach to migration. The European Union, a complex and multifaceted entity, has long been grappling with the challenges posed by migration. This issue, more than any other, has tested the unity and resolve of the bloc. The EU, you see, is a bit of a paradox, a union of nations that often struggles to act as one. Each member state has its own policies, priorities, and perspectives, making it difficult to forge a cohesive strategy. This is particularly true when it comes to migration, an issue that has exposed deep divisions within the bloc. Some countries advocate for open borders and humanitarian aid, while others push for stricter controls and security measures. On the one hand, the EU is founded on principles of solidarity and freedom of movement. These ideals are enshrined in its treaties and are central to its identity. It's committed to upholding the rights of refugees and asylum seekers, and it's provided sanctuary to millions fleeing war and persecution. The EU has established a comprehensive legal framework to protect those in need, including the common European asylum system. On the other hand, the EU is also responsible for protecting its external borders and managing migration flows in a way that's fair and sustainable. This involves balancing the need for security with the obligation to provide refuge. The problem is, these two goals are often at odds with each other. The tension between humanitarian values and security concerns creates a complex and often contentious policy landscape. When the 2015 migrant crisis hit, the EU was caught flat-footed. The sudden influx of refugees and migrants from the Middle East and Africa overwhelmed the existing systems and exposed significant weaknesses. Its asylum system, already under strain, was overwhelmed, and member states squabbled over how to share the burden. The lack of a unified response led to a patchwork of national policies and ad hoc measures. The result was chaos, with thousands of migrants stranded in makeshift camps and countries like Hungary erecting fences to keep them out. The images of desperate people trying to reach safety highlighted the human cost of the crisis. The EU's response has been a mixed bag. While some progress has been made, significant challenges remain. The bloc has struggled to find a balance between compassion and control. It stepped up efforts to address the root causes of migration, providing aid and support to countries of origin and transit. This includes development projects, humanitarian assistance, and efforts to stabilize conflict zones. It's also strengthened its external borders and cracked down on human trafficking. Enhanced border controls and cooperation with neighboring countries aim to prevent irregular migration and ensure the safety of those attempting the journey. But progress has been slow, and the issue of migration remains a political hot potato. The debate over how to manage migration continues to divide member states and challenge the EU's ability to act as a unified entity. The future of the EU's migration policy will depend on its ability to reconcile these competing priorities and find a sustainable path forward. So back to Hungary. By thumbing its nose at the EU, Hungary is playing a dangerous game. The EU has a lot of leverage over its member states, particularly when it comes to money. Hungary is a major recipient of EU funds, which it uses to finance infrastructure projects, support its economy, and, well, line the pockets of Orbán's cronies. The EU has already started to flex its financial muscles. It's withheld billions of euros in funding from Hungary, citing concerns about corruption and the rule of law. And it's threatened to do more if Hungary doesn't fall into line. This is putting a real strain on the Hungarian economy, which is already struggling with high inflation and a weakening currency. But Orbán seems unfazed. He's betting that the EU needs Hungary more than Hungary needs the EU. He's also hoping to rally support from other member states that share his skepticism of Brussels. And let's be honest, he probably enjoys tweaking the EU's nose. The question is, how long can he keep this up? At some point, something's got to give. Either Hungary backs down, the EU blinks, or things get really messy. So what's your take? Is Hungary standing up for its sovereignty, or is it risking economic and political isolation? Drop your comments below and let's get the discussion going. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Hungary's standoff with the EU, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Milwaukee Insights. We've got more in-depth analysis on geopolitics and global trends coming your way. Until next time, keep questioning the world around you.